You don't want the big 3. See, what you really want is the big 4 upgrade. Now that's gonna help with all your truck or car electronics. Dash cams, car alarms, audio systems, lighting, and all that good stuff, you name it. We'll begin by upgrading the battery, doing the big 4 upgrade on our electrical system. That way we can have a solid foundation to have all those custom and real upgrades.
What is real? How do you define real? If you're talking about what you can feel, what you can smell, what you can taste and see, then real is simply electrical signals interpreted by your brain.
These are the parts that I purchased to use on the Tahoe. So for under the hood, I'm gonna be using the Excess Power D3400. I like using their batteries. For the wiring, I'll be using Sky High 0 gauge OFC. I like using this one as well because it's a bit oversized and it's got real copper in there. I also purchased extra. I won't need all this ground, but for later on I can use it. And on the positive side, I got some more OFC Sky High, so it's 0 gauge. And that's enough for the positive side on the alternator. Since I like to do a lot of electrical upgrades and I also want to make it look good, I went ahead and purchased these extra accessories like the new crimpers with the cutters. They came together, and I do have the side post on the Tahoe, so I went ahead and bought this adapter, even though that I should have bought the shorter one, but this will work for today. This one here is a 555 model, but I'll list the shorter one because we don't really need these two for the Tahoe. And since I do like to add a lot of extra things, I got these top adapters so that way I can, you know, have easy access and I don't have to cram them all into one spot. Besides that, I got the heat shrink from Sky High, the new copper lugs. They also got some heat shrink. And to adapt these, I did get some washers because they're not really supposed to go adapted with this, but I'm gonna make it work and it should be pretty good. Finally, to clean them all up, I did get some braided sleeve for the ground and the positive side. As always, I'll have the items linked down below in the description. And first, we're gonna go ahead and start checking on the battery's voltage just to make sure it's fully charged so that we can go ahead and install it and start cutting on these 0 gauge wires. The battery is sitting at 12.9 volts, but fully charged should be more like 13 to 13.2 volts. So I'm gonna go ahead and put it on the trickle charger and make sure it's fully charged. Also, the one I'm using right now is by C-Tech, and this is the MX5 model, but I'll have it down below in the description as well. I just put these posts on while it charges, but you can see I just got it on the AGM and car setting because I'm not reconditioning it. It's just a brand new battery. I'm just want to make sure it's fully charged. On the big 4, we're only going to have one 0 gauge going to the alternator for the charging wire and the 3 extra grounds to the battery. But all of these will get cut down to the same size, which 3 feet should be more than enough. I've got all my wires cut and I already started installing some of the heat shrink that came in with the copper lugs, which is pretty nice. You can see it's a bit sturdy because it's got some adhesive inside. And the one that I bought from Sky High is just a standard heat shrink, which you can see there's no glue or adhesive, but it is oversized just like the wire. And I do like it, so I'm still gonna use it on the outer edge with the braided sleeve to give it that nice look. That's why this one is a bit tighter fitting. It almost fits, but you can see it kind of bends the hairs out of the way and it makes it hard to go all the way down. When I ordered my ring terminals, I did forget that the Sky High wiring is oversized and there is more copper versus some of the other 0 gauge wires out there. And since I already have the ring terminals here, I'm still gonna go ahead and use them. Most likely, I'll just either cut a bit of copper or bend it out of the way so that I can get a good crimp on my ring terminal because I want to get a good connection. And I will go ahead and link down below in the description the correct sized ring terminals for the Sky High oversized wire. That'll be good right there. I just have some of the copper on the side and I can get a good crimp out of this. Once I heat shrink it, you won't really see it, which is good. Just like that. To crimp my 0 gauge wires, I've been using the hydraulic crimper, which is pretty nice, but I do want to go ahead and try out this new crimper. And to select the sizes, you can just press on the bolt here. There's a spring on each side and you can see the numbers up here. So 0 gauge, there's 8 gauge, 1, 2, 4, all the way to like 6 gauge. There it goes right there. And we're gonna be doing the 0 gauge wire today. So let's go ahead and try it out. The crimpers are pretty big, so I am doing them on the bottom so I can get more leverage into getting a better crimp. That's one crimp. I'll do another 0 gauge right on top here. That's with the 2 0 gauge crimps on there. It doesn't look like much, but the wire is on there. And just to make sure that it's as tight as possible, I'll go ahead and try out the 1 gauge setting and see if it allows me to crimp it some more. So we're gonna put it at 1 gauge. All right, that's the 1, and we'll do this side as well. I'm gonna get to that 1. All right, now it should be good, and let's go ahead and see if we can get it tighter than this. Yeah, I went ahead and tightened it up more. It was a bit harder, but it got it. Yeah, boy. I was able to crimp it at the 1 gauge setting. It was a bit more work, but you can see it definitely squeezed the wire some more. So I do like that. And if you have to, you can go ahead and do a couple more crimps. I'll go ahead and do this on the rest of my wiring. And besides that, I still do like the hydraulic crimper, but this one was a bit quicker. Before I put my heat shrink, I'm gonna go ahead and tape this up so I can keep the strands in place. You can see the adhesive right here, and this will make it a watertight connection. All the wires are ready now, and they look good with the copper ring terminals, the watertight seal heat shrink, but you already know I gotta go ahead and cover them up with the braided sleeve to give them that extra protection and a cleaner look. I'm using some electrical tape to hold it in place while I put the heat shrink. That looks much better, and let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. On the braided sleeve, whenever you cut it, you don't want to cut it exactly to the length of the wire. You want to make it a little bit bigger. I did mine's a little bit over like 1/2 inch to 1 inch, because whenever you put it on, it shrinks it down with the thickness of the wire. And now that I made it a little bit longer, I was able to get the heat shrink, and it has full coverage. On this ground, I'm only using the braided sleeve halfway because I am going to be having it close to the engine block, and I added some high heat Tesa tape. On top of that, I'll probably cover it up with some more heat shrink. The Tahoe just has the standard battery that came with it when I purchased it, so it's nothing special. And all I did last time was upgrade the charging wire on the alternator with a 0 gauge welding cable. I'm just gonna go ahead and remove it and replace it with our new 0 gauge from Sky High. And on the negative side, I did change up the bolt because I had some extra wiring from my electric fans, the fog lights. On the positive side, it's just got the original 8mm. And I'm just gonna go ahead and start by taking it apart. This bar here has some 10mm, but this side is missing. So I might look for another one when I put the new battery. And there's the other 10mm. And on the bottom, there's gotta be another 13mm, but you can see that plastic is just loose on the ground and it's missing. So I'll probably have to look for that bolt and, you know, bolt it down because I don't want the battery to be moving around. These are loose now, and I'll go ahead and remove the one from the alternator. That's the old welding cable. I got the old battery out, and on the bottom you can see that the tray is all rusted, as well as the bolts. But I'm gonna try to go ahead and take them off. The other bracket down there also looks rusted, so I'm not sure how deep does it go. And I did go ahead and order a replacement for the top one, but I may have to replace the bottom piece, which I don't have right now. And if the bolts give me a hard time, I might just change this out later. That one doesn't even look like it has a bolt head anymore. And there's one here. There's like 3 more on this side. You can barely see them. And the ones on the wall don't look too bad. Here's that battery bracket as well. So I'll have to put a 13mm bolt to hold it in place. Let's try this one first because it don't look good. Yeah, it looks like this tray's not coming out today because the bolts are just starting to spin. And I'll just go ahead and look for the bottom bracket. Next time I will put the tray once I find that piece. And for now, I'll just go ahead and clear it up a little bit. I found a bolt that fits in. Now the battery's good. The side post adapters have these little slits that'll go on the battery, and then you could just sit it down there and bolt it down with the top screw. The same on the positive side. Before I bolt down these side post adapters, I also want to do the aluminum ones, but they're not really designed to work with each other. So what I did was go ahead and purchase the washers so that I can put them into these spots here, and that way it'll give it a flat surface, and that should work out pretty good. So I'm gonna go ahead and just put all 4, even though that it's only gonna get bolted from 1 bolt, and I just want to have it all even. Should sit like that, and then this top piece will get bolted here because the bottom one won't line up, but it should be good just to make it a flat spot. The positive side adapter is on, and I also went ahead and added the top post adapter since they came in the bag, and maybe I can just use them for something later on. Overall, it looks pretty good and it's nice and sturdy. So I'm gonna go ahead and do the negative side the same way, and I am using the longer bolts with the small washers. That way it'll fit into the top post adapter. It took a little while, but I got both of the posts on, and that's because the side ones I had to find nuts and bolts to make it fit, because there's a pocket in here on this adapter that doesn't let it sit flush, so I don't have the original covers anymore. And I also add those nuts on the bottom to space them out. The original one is too short, so that's what took the longest. And now I can go ahead and do the charging wire for the alternator. That should be pretty simple. Just positive straight to the positive post on the battery. Any of these terminals will be fine, and I'll be running mine without a fuse, but you can add one. From the factory, they don't have it because it is a short run of wire, so it's really up to you if you want to add a fuse or not. My charging wire is now ready, and I also went ahead and added more braided sleeve on this bar, even though it's not a wire, but I think it looks pretty cool. You guys let me know what you think, but I was thinking of protecting it a little bit more since it is real close to the positive side. I brought the charging wire up to the top so you can see it a little bit better, but now we can go ahead and do the grounds on the truck. The frame ground on the Tahoe is going to be right underneath behind the front bumper. There's going to be a 10mm bolt back here. To make this easier, it does help out to lift the front end of your truck so we can reach the engine block ground and the chassis ground. You can see it right over here. There's 2 grounds on this factory bolt, so I'll have to join them, and if you have some rust on your terminals, you can go ahead and clean them up just to make sure you get a good connection. I'm gonna go ahead and clean this one up right here. It had a little bit of rust, so I went ahead and cleaned it up with some sandpaper. That's the chassis ground, and now I'll go ahead and put some paint on here just to cover up the extra spots that I went ahead and sand it down because I don't want it to rust. The frame or chassis ground is ready, so this is a good spot here, and now we can move on to the engine block ground. If we follow the factory wiring, it goes straight into the engine block right in the bottom in this spot. Here's the factory engine block ground, and it's being held on by a 13mm bolt. So I'll go ahead and loosen it up and attach our 0 gauge ground. That's how I like to do my engine ground every time. So I'm using the original factory bolt, which is a 13mm. We have the original 4 gauge ground, this loomed one, which is the 8 gauge, and our sky high, which is the 0 gauge wire. I also did go ahead and cover it up with that heat shrink, and underneath it does have the high heat Tesa tape because I want to make sure it's gonna be good and not get damaged. But to make this work, I did change out the bolt to a little bit longer one, and I'll go ahead and show you right now. This is the factory 13mm bolt that goes on the engine block ground, and you can see it's kind of short and rusted. So what I did was check up under here where I have some extra GM screws, and I found this other 13mm, which is a bit bigger, but it is threaded all the way to the bottom. And that worked out pretty good because it's not rusted and it's just a bit longer. I didn't want to go ahead and put a real long screw because I don't want to damage it, but I'm not exactly sure what panel it comes off. But if you are going to be swapping yours out, just make sure to check out your bolts because some of them are going to be longer and they're not threaded. So check that out right there. This one is much longer versus the one that I use. If you can, go ahead and use this 13mm bolt right here. It works pretty good for that one extra ground. Yeah, this should be good here for the engine block ground. At this point, we already have the big 3 upgrade, the 12-volt charging wire that goes directly onto the alternator. That's the only 12-volt wire. The engine block ground straight to the negative post. The chassis or frame ground straight to the negative post again. And finally, we can't forget about the big 4 upgrade wire, which is going to be on the actual body of the truck. So don't forget about this one. I'm going to be using this 10mm bolt here, straight to the negative post of the battery. And I did go ahead and just move them around to give it a little bit of a different or better look. I think it turned out pretty good. So we got all 3 grounds here, the 12-volt charging wire, and here on the bottom is going to be the one for my fans, which I had done before on the fan conversion. But I think it looks much better, especially with this one, because it was looking kind of old and rusted, but it was real close to the positive side. The battery is fully charged and is resting at 13 volts. I'll go ahead and start the Tahoe, and I do have a high output alternator by DC Power. It's the 370 amp. It's right at 15 volts right now, but usually it comes down a little bit. The engine's warmer now. You can see it's already idling at 14.8. And if you want to make it better, you can also do thicker wiring or more runs of 0 gauge. But in my case, this will work just fine. It's a good start with the excess power battery and all the 0 gauge wires. I think a lot of people forget about the body ground, but it's one of the most important ones. If you really think about it, anytime you take your car or truck for any custom upgrades like alarms, dash cams, or anything like that, maybe radios, they're going to go ahead and ground them at the body inside the truck. Usually they're not going to go onto the frame. So you want to go ahead and make sure to ground your body straight to the battery. I do like going straight to the source. I don't like to bridge them from spot to spot because I think that'll defeat the purpose. And it's much better if you just go directly to the battery. You can see the flow is just much easier versus having to go through the frame, all around to the body, and then coming back. But you guys let me know what you think down below in the comments. And that's the big 4 on the Tahoe right there. Now she's ready for some real upgrades. But if this video helped you out, don't forget to hit that like button down below, share the video, and I'll see you on the next one.